Doctor Who, The Magician's Apprentice. Now, fair warning, this review will have spoilers, so if you haven't seen the episode yet and you don't want to be spoiled on a few key plot points, I recommend you go and watch the episode first before watching this review. However, I will be keeping this brief, and I will be trying to keep spoilers to an absolute minimum, so if you do want to watch the review, you still can. It just depends on how surprised you like to be. First of all, I want to start off by saying I almost didn't do this review. I like to do reviews after every single episode unless one specific criterion is met, and that is that the episode is a two-parter, and this episode turned out to be part one of a two-parter. I usually like to do two-parters all at the same time, but because this was also a season premiere, which, seriously, a two-parter season premiere that isn't all aired at once, that's weird, right? But since this was a season premiere, I felt like I didn't really have an option. This is also a new format for me. I usually do these reviews in text, but I decided to go ahead and give it a try on camera like this. I've been doing more and more of this lately, and I have been enjoying it. This will also allow me to include visuals from the episode right up here. Anyway, yeah, this episode. I enjoyed it. I'll get that out of the way right away. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was significantly better than a lot of the season or series 8 episodes, depending on how you want to phrase that. I thought Capaldi here was absolutely great as the Doctor. He really felt like the Doctor again. He felt kind of like 11, mixed a little bit with 10, which was a little interesting. You had him acting silly, but also contemplative and really self-aware. Because the Doctor is being hunted. He's being chased down by this creature with this weird, layered face, and it scares a lot of people, and it apparently has these weird powers. And while he is evading the creature, he overhears what it wants from him. And it harkens back to the opening of the episode where the Doctor encounters a child trapped within these hand mines, which are literally hands that come out of the ground with these nasty eyes on them, like real organic eyes. And when they see you, they grab you and pull you under and kill you. And being the Doctor, he has no freaking idea where he is or what conflict he's just stumbled his way into, but he wants to save the child. It's what he does. He's the Doctor. Until he hears the child's name, and this is going to be the first really major spoiler for this episode, so once again, I implore you, if you don't want any spoilers, turn back now. The child is Davros, that being the creator of the Daleks and one of the Doctor's greatest enemies. And whether merely out of spite or hoping that if Davros dies, the Daleks would never come to be, the Doctor leaves it there to die. Some heavy shit, guys. In fact, he leaves the sonic screwdriver there. He tossed it to the kid as a means of projecting his voice to him so that they could communicate, and then he leaves it there. He doesn't have a sonic screwdriver anymore. And that's what the self-awareness comes from. The Doctor is ashamed of his actions. He knows already that he did the wrong thing, that he should have helped, and he feels ashamed for it, because that's who the Doctor is. He's a hero. He tries to get everyone out of the situation, no matter what they might do in the future. So, when Missy, the mistress or the master, depending on what you want to call her, suddenly shows up, alive again, out of nowhere, contacts Unit and Clara Oswald with this artifact the Doctor sent her that includes his last will and testament. She knows that he knows that he's about to die, that this creature that's pursuing him is about to find him. Clara comes in to Unit, and she's all business. She understands what's going on. She's all savvy in the world of British fictional super spies now. And she goes to meet with Missy. And there's a conflict between them where Clara wonders why the Doctor would send this artifact to Missy and not to her. And Missy gives this long speech about how she's really the Doctor's best friend. And watching it, it's really hard to argue with her. It's really interesting, guys. You need to watch it. It's very well handled. And just to get it right out in the open, Missy's not a good guy now. She's still a villain. She does some villainous things. In fact, she really reminds me of the Ninth Doctor here with her weird aloofness that can switch to this serious, almost over-serious anger all of a sudden out of nowhere. It's really interesting. She really felt like the Doctor here, which I thought was really interesting. It created a really interesting parallel between the characters, that she reminded me of the Doctor so much in her scenes. But before we go any further, I do want to talk about the scenes at Unit with Clara. I didn't really like them very much. I feel like Moffat does this a lot with Doctor Who companions when he's run out of ways to characterize them along the same lines that they've been characterized along the entire time. He just makes them super competent in the Doctor's world. I don't like that. When you make a character that much more like the Doctor, that much more aware and in control of what's going on. It takes away something from what made their character interesting in their interplay with him to begin with. I just feel like it's kind of cheap. And in a show where the companions are recycled so often, I feel like it's something you really should save until right before the character goes out. That's what made Donna such an interesting character when she was heading out of the show. She was suddenly as competent as the Doctor, out of nowhere. And it was really interesting to see that interplay between them, but you knew she was leaving. So it didn't detract from the characterization that she had already had. Seriously though, Donna, so tragic. Ugh. But anyways, it's not a bad scene. It just left a bad taste in my mouth. It really feels like Moffat doesn't really know where to take Clara as a character anymore, and that her characterizations are going to be really dependent on the Doctor and his world and his actions. And it's never a good thing to do that, ever. Especially not with a female protagonist. There's also the issue that if you make the companions super competent, then when the Doctor has to come in and save them later, it doesn't quite sell as well. And there's really nothing more to say about it. I don't like when they do this. It bugs me. But anyway, Clara agrees to go with Missy. They go find the Doctor. They have this great scene where he comes out into the arena at the palace in the past where he's hiding on a freaking tank. Which, first of all, how did he get a tank there? Second of all, why did he bring a tank there? Third of all, how amazing is it that he was riding on top of a freaking tank? Playing an electric guitar, and he's great. It was a great scene. Absolutely fantastic. Felt really, really Doctor. And that's what I mean. He feels like the 11th Doctor here, being over the top and really wacky. And then the scene does a full 180, going from goofy to serious, and the change in tone was palpable. And it slapped you in the face with it, and really did a good job of conveying the weight of what was going on. Because the creature that has been following him gives him back his Sonic and says, Davros remembers. And then he takes him to Davros. Here is the second super major spoiler. This is the other big surprise scene. So I'm going to put an annotation in the video here. If you don't want the ending of this episode spoiled, click the annotation, which will be right here over the clips I've been showing. It will take you to the end where I sum up my feelings on the episode. Are you gone? Okay, everybody else here is cool. I can talk to you people. I've been saying something about Doctor Who for a few years now. That the Daleks are overdone. They've lost their fear factor. They aren't interesting villains anymore when they're done the same way over and over again. And while Moffat is pretty good at doing really creative Dalek stories, they still have started to feel stale. Here we have a Dalek story that wasn't stale. Because when the Daleks are finally introduced at the end of this episode, the Doctor is nowhere in sight, his companions are alone, the Daleks have the TARDIS. They have the TARDIS. And the firepower to destroy it. And there's nothing the Doctor can do. He can't get there in time to stop them. And that's what made this scene effective. They were used minimalistically, and they were used in a situation where the Doctor didn't have any hope of coming up with a clever plan out of nowhere to save his friends. And they're killed. Clara, Missy, and the TARDIS are all shot and destroyed by the Daleks. Right there, the Doctor can see them over video feed from the room where he's standing with Davros, and he's destroyed. He loses it, and he makes a decision. And the episode ends with him returning to that minefield to save Davros, in the vain hope that doing so will save his friends. It's an absolutely great episode. Once again, I was a little surprised it was part one of a two-parter. I did not know that was coming. I do try to separate myself from any talk about the episodes so that I am as surprised as possible by what happens. Even though it was part one of a two-parter, it still told a fairly self-contained story about the Doctor dealing with the shame of something that he had done. And while that plot point isn't going to be resolved until next week, I still think it did a good job of conveying the meaning that it intended, of showing you this man in this realistic, vulnerable position that I feel like Season 8, Series 8, tried to do several times and never quite succeeded in pulling off. Overall, this was a good episode. I rank it as above average on my grading scale, which I'll put on here eventually, but if you really want to know what it is, go ahead and check my blog. Link in the description down below. But let's just say for a show that I consider above average anyway, an above average episode is pretty exceptional. But guys, that's how I felt about The Magician's Apprentice, the season series 9 premiere of Doctor Who. What did you think about it if you've seen it? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.